How you doing? Right, we're doing this right off the cuff. I've hijacked John in the lift. You all know John Kavanagh, probably famously known as a coach with Conor McGregor and loads of great fighters. He has no idea what I'm going to ask him, nor do I really. No, it's the best way to do it. So if you could give a brief, before, basically we go into the anti-bullying stuff, right? But basically just give a brief of like your history of growing up and how you got into the fighting and training and stuff.
Yeah, well, I did get started in martial arts young, but my dad kind of pushed me into it, and I sort of was on and off with it. And then what really made me go back to it was when I was 18, I got in a really bad street fight. I got badly beat up by a group of guys in front of my girlfriend, and it was a very humiliating experience. And I look back on it now and I realised that I went into depression after this. I was a good 4 or 5 months I didn't want to leave my house. I found I got anxiety attacks anytime I was going outside, and I during school I suffered what I would call a pretty average amount of bullying. I don't think anybody goes through all of school without experiencing bullying to some degree or level. I don't think I got it in any way to an extreme amount, but I did have it on and off throughout my childhood. And then this one really bad incident when, like I said, when I was 18, it spurred me to go back to martial arts. And that's when I took some time and I started reading about kind of more self-defense type of martial arts. And I was initially drawn to.
So how old was you at this point?
I guess I was 18.
Yeah.
And then I spent a couple of months. It was actually not far after my 18th birthday that I got beat up. And then I spent almost that year kind of researching different martial arts and what was it that was going to help me win street fights. That's where my mind was at the time. I didn't realize I was actually going to drift towards sport, and that was what was going to be the answer for me. But at the time I thought learn like knife defense and all of these kind of like street fighting techniques. And then I start reading a lot about a guy, Jeff Thompson, that you probably
Yeah, I'm a good friend of his, yeah.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I started reading a lot about him, and the big lesson I got from Jeff and his writings was being afraid was normal.
Yeah.
And that was a revelation to me. I grew up in a household where my dad didn't seem to be afraid of anybody, and I looked at martial arts movies of these guys fighting off 5 or 6 guys without a blink. And every time I almost got in a fight, I was terrified. I felt all this adrenaline, all this anxiety. And I thought I was the only one that felt that, and that made me a coward. And so that was the big message I got from Jeff, was learning that it's okay to feel afraid. Fear is normal, but it's what you do with it and how you can overcome that.
Yeah. Custom motto, same thing with Mike Tyson. Everyone feels fear is what you do, it makes you a champion.
Yeah, and it's now I see myself having this conversation regularly with my fighters that they're amateur, they're starting off, and they're calling me the day before a fight saying they're having trouble sleeping and nervous, and they really believe they're the only one that's ever felt this. And you tell them stories like that of Mike Tyson, one of the most feared fighters, trying to climb out windows to get out of fights, and Tito Ortiz getting sick before bouts with nerves. So for me, what I learned then and what I teach my fighters now is that fear is a completely normal emotion. It's there is techniques, breathing techniques, visualization techniques, and ultimately if you train the right way in the lead up to a contest, that's going to help alleviate fears as well. But that was my beginnings of real martial arts.
So what we're kind of saying here is this fear, the fear of the anti-bullying thing goes right across the board. So if you're going to have a fight in the octagon or wherever, then the emotions, if you've never done it before, can overtake you. And that's similar to being bullied, because if you don't feel like you've got someone to go to, which we're hoping by these videos you realise you have got loads of people to go to, John and all the other people we do the videos with are saying we all feel this, but it's what we do with it. I have to openly say that my bullies are my best friends, because the ones who, couple in particular that hurt me the most when I was a kid, they're the ones who made me go this route. And you may be able to say that kind of happened to you, that fight situation you had pushed you a route that you might not have gone otherwise.
Very, very true.
So in theory, our bullies are our friends. Our down days, the fear that we're feeling really is what is going to, if we do it correctly, if we channel that energy, and Jeff would say it. I mean, for those who don't know about Jeff, Jeff will openly tell you he was raped as a younger man, and he put all of that anger and aggression and fear. He went on the door and, he went through his anger period. But I think he'd also say that energy, what he's got inside of him, what we might call pain, you can use that energy to project you in the way you want to go if you channel it correctly, and don't let it dissipate into anger now. Push it to the place that whatever you want to do in your life.
Yeah, spot on. And like I said, I started with those type of martial arts and somewhat trying to mimic Jeff Thompson. I went on the door for a couple of years, and then I drifted towards.
Where was this, in Dublin?
In Dublin, yeah. And then I drifted towards.
They never fight in Dublin either. There's never seen a fight there.
Just the finger wagging was it.
No, it's amazing.
But then I went on to sport, and I fell in love with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu first. Again, it was Jeff Thompson, reading about him training with the Machados, and I actually got to train with the Machados. And it was sport that was really the answer for me, because it gave me a great sense of self-worth, which I never had. My parents did a great job, raising me and making me feel good, but the bullying and feeling afraid all the time, it did make me question whether I was worth anything. And I did work through my fears on the door and dealing with self-defense situations, but it didn't put it to rest. What really put it to rest was when I went deep into MMA and sport, found a group of friends to train with, trained hard, physically got stronger and felt better, which led to me letting go of a lot of mental anguish, and then becoming pretty good at what I do. It gave me a great sense of self-worth, and I've seen that, and I'm sure you have seen that in martial arts countless times. Young guys falling into boxing with coming from a difficult background and working through that and getting a great sense of self-worth through excelling in sport. And I've seen that in my own gym countless times, guys coming from tough backgrounds and going through that rites of passage somewhat. Yeah. And I've always encouraged, when people have come to me and asked me for advice on mental health issues or being bullied or this, is really throw yourself into a physical sport. The good hormones you get released from training hard, and the close group of friends you meet in this. For me, it's been great that I've had some public successes, but that's a distant second to the community that I've found myself a part of. And we only sort of meet each other at big shows now, but it's always great seeing a friend again, and I'm sure you have that with a lot of people. And for me, sport was what saved me, would be certainly an exaggeration, but certainly made me feel much. To make me feel content, and I think that's really what we're all trying to do, is just feel content and happy.
Not to say that whatever else you and I might have done along our route, I don't know where I would have gone if I hadn't have been bullied, because definitely I might not have gone the martial arts route. So I actually say it out loud a lot that the bullying put me here, so I see it like that. If you hadn't have had that fight situation, you might have got into it, but not as seriously or as deeply. So when you've been up on the television with Conor McGregor and all your other athletes, which you've got a great camp, some of it spirals from that a little bit. So some people can say, oh my God, how terrible. But I think there's people going out, it's not just kids either, I deal with I speak to a lot of people. It happens at work, it happens in families with your mum and your dad, even your mum and dad with each other. They bully each other, or they bully their kids without realising. I think what we're trying to say a lot is, whatever way you're going through this, you have to face it gently, but it can be your biggest triumph as well if you use the energy in the right place, because that's definitely, I have to say, that's my case, and it sounds pretty much like it's yours as well.
Yeah, and
you might have gone on to be a great accountant.
Who knows?
What would you have done if you don't, 16, 17, any ideas where you was going work-wise?
I have a degree in engineering, so I was going to be an engineer or a maths teacher. That's the direction I was going.
I'm not saying he wouldn't have been a great, but I'm just saying he might have helped a lot of people as a teacher or an engineer. But I think
Yeah.
the way your life has gone has put you
No,
in a place you can help a lot more.
I wouldn't change anything,
Yeah.
considering where it's brought me to, and just to echo what you're saying, I do say that to kids as well, is that how can I say any of my experience were negative if it brought me to where I am today, which is where I'm very happy. So if at this moment of my life, I'm 40, I've done some good things in my sport, and I'm very content. How can I say something in the past was a negative when, like you said, it may have been the situation that knocked me onto this particular path? So it's interesting you say that your buddies were your best friends or your best teachers, but when I hear you saying that and you hear you explaining it, it's 100% correct.
Yeah, it was weird. Obviously, when I grew up, and there'd be a lot of kids that will associate with this. My dad wasn't around, and it wasn't anyone's fault, right? My mum and dad, great mum and dad, but my mum was on her own, so she had to work a lot, and then my dad wasn't there at all. So I had no one really. I didn't want to tell anyone because I knew I lived with my nan most of the time, so I didn't want to tell her because that would upset her and put her in it. So I didn't tell anyone, so that's a bad thing as well. So we're hoping by watching these that if you are going through something bad, the first thing you do is reach out to someone to kind of accept that it may be a great thing that you're going through, even though scary and horrible it is. And if it's a fair point to say, we're a great believer in martial arts, but it doesn't necessarily have to be you have to go out and fight. But you can just go out and build your confidence in where you may think you're weak. And a lot of time, no is a very powerful word, and that's all you need. You don't need to go into the octagon and fight, but you need to build up the confidence to be able to say no to something. And then by going to classes, I mean, my federation is a Krav Maga federation, so we do it more as self-defence, and your one is more of a sport. Mm-hmm. So depending on what you need, but it's all out there for you, and you'll meet great people like him. Anything else you want to finish with, or I think you've covered it all?
Yeah, I think what you said there at the end is very important. That like I said, it was sport that saved me, because, or again, that sounds a bit dramatic, but sport that gave me that gave me self-confidence that then I wasn't getting in fights. You know, but I think when you're physically comfortable with yourself, you hold yourself in a certain way that you're not sensed to be a victim from those around you.
Yeah.
You know, and I think I know people who are great, who play rugby or do CrossFit or do, you know, different martial arts or any kind of activity like that, and it just gives them a certain way of standing and holding themselves. So I'm just a huge believer in sport, and sometimes I get asked, well, you know, what do you think is better, boxing or MMA? And for me, it's not boxing or MMA. It's sport or no sport. I don't care what the kid is interested in, if it's gymnastics or dance or rock climbing. Get involved in something. You know, there's something in your community you can be a part of. There's some activity you can do. So get out, get involved, try loads, and I promise you'll find one that you really suddenly just fall in love with. And who knows, it might be something you go on to become a world champion in, or it might be just something you go on to do for life that's a great social activity. But get out, get active.
And one thing to finish with as well, both of us have had a few fights. More importantly, there was a point in my life when I realised that I didn't like hurting people physically, even though I'm probably okay at doing it, especially with what I've done over the years. But I don't like the idea of hurting someone, though I can protect myself, so that's a different thing. And I always say this, I want to make you so confident you can choose to walk away. So we're not saying from this, oh, you need to go out there and get physically crazy and want to fight everyone. We're saying this, get physically confident enough that you know you can deal with something, and then you'll build this kind of invisible barrier that will probably protect you from getting involved in the first place. Yeah? There's loads of sites out there, there's loads of people. It's more important that if you are watching this and you're going through something, you do reach out, because you just got to ask the question. Start asking the question and you'll get the answers. Thank you.
Thanks, brother. Good chat.
Take care. See you soon.
Thank you, people.
Bye-bye.